It's me. Welcome. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up here in New South Wales, Australia. I have jumped on a couple of minutes early, 15 seconds, so what does that matter? So thank you very much for joining me today. Please jump on, say hello, let me know where you're from. It's really great welcoming new people. So this has been quite an exciting week. We've had on stage last weekend, and let me just pull this out. We have got the new catalogue. Now, I can't show you what's inside it, but there's some really, really fun stuff. So hopefully over the next few weeks, I'll be able to start showing you what is in there. But today, what I thought I would do is when we have something like on stage where we get a group of demonstrators together like that, we have swaps. Hello. How are you, Jane? Thanks for jumping on. Great to have you here. We have swaps, which we swap, sort of card for card, 3D item for 3D item. And I made a double slider box. And I did say earlier this week that I would do a live today showing how I created that. So let me flip my camera down. Please continue jumping on, saying hi, and let me know where you're from. And I've just realised for some reason or other, my camera has gone back to front. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, I haven't been on this for 2 weeks and I've come back on, and for some reason things are a little bit different. So let me have a quick look. Okay, bear with me 1 second, otherwise we may have to, let me see if I can flip this around. I'm not quite sure whether this is going to work. Let's have a look. No, that hasn't worked. Hold on a second. I need to... That needs to be mirrored. Oh, isn't this great? That one there. Let me see. I may have fixed it. Hold on 1 tick. Let me just see if I can refresh this. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not quite sure what this is doing to me. It's looking like it's correct there. Okay, I can't keep playing with this. I'm not quite sure what is going on. I'm just going to bring up my photo again. And let me just... Now I've got it right. Okay then. That looks good, but for some reason my picture has gone. Okay, we're not going to worry about me. We can just take that right out. Let me just make sure I'm taking out the right one. Yep, okay. Okay then, that's fine. We won't confuse ourselves. I'll sort all that out later, but at least I've got this going in the right direction now. So this is my double slider box. So it was a little camera. I used the Charm Capturing Smiles stamp set and dies to create this. And what you do is, if you hold the box on your left-hand side, grab that little black tag on the right-hand side and pull that out, and you can see a treat will pop out on the other side. So that's the double slider box. So let's get started and let me show how to make this. Okay, so what I need to do this is some cardstock, and I actually made a bit of an error before I went away and started doing more boxes when I didn't need them. So I've already got this piece here. Now, I am in Australia, so I'm working with A4 cardstock. Let me just see if I can pull this out just a little bit more and give us a bit more. Okay. Don't know why it's doing that. It's just... Okay, so I've got a piece of A4 cardstock here. And I've cut this piece of cardstock down to 17 centimetres by the 29.9. Now, just to do one of these boxes, and I'll show you what one box component, the back of it looks like. This is the component here. This is my play around one, so just don't mind about the stamping on it. So this is what we're going to need to create to start with. This is our box that is going to be our slide, and then our stamped image is going to go on top of it. So to create this box, the way I got the measurements is I started with my little piece of chocolate and I measured the depth of my chocolate. So the depth from the bottom of it to the top of it. And that is what's going to give me my depth here. And I've gone for 1.5 centimetres. Now, in saying that also, I need to work out the width of my box. Oh, I'm glad you got one, Jane. Great, fantastic. I'm glad you got it. So that's how I got the depth of my box. The width of my box, I used one of the, let me just grab, you know, when you start something and then all of a sudden you're sort of trying to think. I've got lots and lots of bits and pieces here left over. So this is one of the fronts, the fronts here. So I measured the width of my box and the width of my front of my camera and the depth. So I know that my chocolate, as I said, is going to be around about 1.5 centimetres. Now it is a little bit wider because you don't want it too tight in there. So the depth of my box has to be 1.5. The width of my die cut is it's just over 8 centimetres. Now I wanted this to be well and truly hidden behind there. So I've made that 7.5. I've actually made it 7.4. Now, not all of these that I gave out are 7.4 because I will explain all this to you in a moment, why I've gone from 7.5 to 7.4. It's only 1 millimetre, but it makes a difference when you're making multiples, okay? So that's how I worked out the depth. So if I look at the back of this and I went 7.5, that's giving me a little bit of clearance on either side because that is actual fact, it's 8.2, and I went 7.5, finished up at 7.4. The width, I wanted no more than 4 centimetres. So you can see here, if I measure the lowest or the narrowest part of this die cut, it's actually 4.3, and I've gone 4 centimetres. So my box in my width here is 4. My depth is 7.4, and the width of my box is 1.5. Now, if you're only going to make one of these boxes, you would cut your cardstock for your actual box at 7.5 or 7.4 by 17 centimetres. Because this is all the way around is 17 centimetres, and I'm going to explain that to you in a moment. But if you want to cut multiples, okay, I made 50 of these. So, and I made 4 in each colour. Now, our cardstock is 29.9, and if we divide that in half, we're actually just under 15 centimetres because this is just shy of 30 centimetres. So I've made it 7.5. If I went 15 at my half, I could go 7.5. Now, because this is just shy of 30 centimetres, that's why I made it 7.4. So That's my reasons why. It allowed me to cut multiples if I was doing a huge amount. If you're only doing one, you only need to cut a piece 7.5 by 17. But to get the most out of my cardstock, I cut it at 7.4 by, I cut it at 17 by my 29.5, and then I'm going to break it up into 7.4 centimetre segments. And I will show you that in a sec. Now, before we do that, we need to, I've already pre-scored this, but we need to score this. Now, I will put all of this and draw it all up for you and put it onto my blog over the weekend. But my scoring lines, I've scored it at 1 centimetre. I've scored it. I'll grab my score so you can actually see, and I'll do this as we go. So I started off, let's pull this right out. Let's do this properly. Cutting blades just come off. Okay, let's move that cutting blade right up there. So I'm popping this on my 1 centimetre mark on my right-hand side. Okay, and lining that up. Then with my score blade, I'm going to score that at 1 centimetre. I'm now going to move this again to my right to 2.5 centimetres and score it again. Now, so this is going to be, I'm not just going that way and I can use my measurements. What I'm going to do now is take this out. So I've got 2 score lines. I'm going to turn it around 90 degrees, flip it over, and then put that on my 2.5 here. I'm now going to move this across to 6.5 centimetres. And I'm going to 6.5, and I'm going to score that again. Going to move it across. So what we've done so far is we have done a tab, which we're going to join it. We've done our width, our depth of our box. I've done my width of my box, and now I've got to do, sorry, I'm showing myself here. So I've done my tab, which is 1 centimetre. I've gone 1.5 centimetres across this way. I've gone the width of my box, which is 4 centimetres, and now I'm going to score it again, and this time I'm going to score it at 8 centimetres, which is another 1.5 centimetres. Again, that's my other side of my box, my other width of 1.5. Then I'm going to score it at 12. So again, that's another 4 centimetres, which is the depth of my box. And then I'm going to score it at another 4 centimetres again. This is to create our mechanism, okay? So I'm going to score it at 16. And then that will bring us back to our 17 centimetres, which is another side of our tab. So this is where now the length of my box. So as I said, this is 29.9, just shy of 30 centimetres. And I'm going to cut each one of these at 7.4. Okay, let's just move that out of the road. So let's just take that up there. So I've now got that at 7.4, and I'm going to cut. Now, I didn't mention, I've already put my tear and tape right next to that score line on the both sides of it in that 1 centimetre tab. I find that is a lot easier and a lot quicker to score a whole length and put my tear and tape on the whole length and then cut, rather than just putting little pieces of tearing tape on just those ends. So we're going to go 7.5 or 7.4, 7.4 again, cut, 7.4 again, and cut. And then our last one is going to be 7.4, or we could leave that at our 7.5. So that's how we can get 4 boxes out of one piece of A4 cardstock. So let me just pop my trimmer to one side. So this is our box. I won't need those. I'm going to pop those to one side for later on. So this is going to be what is going to create our box. So we're going to now burnish all those score lines. So we've got our 1 centimetre, our 1.5. So there's our tab. Our 1.5, which is the side. Our 4 centimetre one, which is going to give us across the base. Our second side at 1.5. And then we have 2 at 4 centimetres next to each other. And they're going to partly form our mechanism. And they're going to fold back on itself just like that. But before we do that, we need to add our mechanism. Hi, Joan. How are you? So this is what's going to create all our magic. And this is just a piece of plastic. So what I did here is I took a piece, this is a A4 plastic sleeve that you can get, get a pack of them for your folders at the news agency or the supermarket. And what I've done here is, again, I've taken my tearing tape. I've run a row of tearing tape down this side here, next to that tab, just on the inside. Let me grab my tearing tape so I can show you what I mean. And again, if you're only making one, you wouldn't need to do all of this, but this is if you're making a batch of them, okay? So what we're going to do is just run a row of tearing tape just on the inside. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just going to add that all the way down there like that. Now, because we've got 2 sides of this bag, what you can do is add another row on the other side as well, okay? We're going to grab our trimmer again, and I'm going to start from my open end, and I want to cut these at 3 centimetres wide. So your trimmer will cut it, so I'm going to pop that at 3 centimetres, making that flush at the top. And then just using my trimmer, I'm going to cut 3 centimetres. And what you're going to be left with is a piece like that. Okay, I'm not going to do all of that, and I'm going to grab another one I've got here. Here we go. So this is what I've just cut. This one here, I've actually got my tearing tape on either side. Grab my pair of scissors, just trim away that top part there, and I'm going to cut that there to give me 2 of these pieces. I only need 1 per box, but again, this is how you cut it if you're cutting multiples. So we need 1 of those to make for our box. So I'm going to take my box again. I'm working on this end here where I've got those 2 4 centimetre portions. I'm going to grab my piece of plastic, and that's the way I like to work, and I'm going to pop that on there, and I've got my tearing tape on the top. Now, the one thing I didn't show you that I always like to do, these are boxes, and I'm just going to, before I get too carried away, just trim those ends there, just take those corners off, just so then our box sits nice and finished. So let's go back to this piece here. As I said before, I just like to have that piece right there. I've got my piece of plastic here with my tearing tape on the top. I'm going to just take off the backing of my tearing tape, and I've got that right up the top there, and I'm going to wrap that around. It's firm but not too tight because I do want play in this, and I'm going to take that over and wrap it over, give that a really good burnish on that tape just there. Now, by putting my tape down onto my plastic sleeve and then cutting it, okay, I'm not going to have any tape overhang. If I tried to put my tape on there in between, I could end up with the adhesive going past my plastic, and I don't want that to happen because that could catch then on my cardstock and stop this from moving. At the moment, this slides fairly freely. I don't know whether you can see that around there. Now I've got this little piece of plastic here that is hanging off, and we don't need that, so I'm just going to trim that away. So we don't need that little bit of plastic there. They can go in the bin. Sorry, someone was just trying to ring me. We'll ignore that. Okay, so there's that piece on there. Now I'm just going to take that join again right back up to the top here. I don't know whether you can actually see that, but my join is right there. I'm going to grab my tear and tape again, and I'm going to place another piece of tear and tape on the inside there, but just on the inside. It's slightly smaller. Okay, so there's my plastic on either side. Let me see if I can pop this underneath and see if you can see it. So there's my plastic finishing there, and my tear and tape is just slightly narrower than that plastic. So that's that part of our box formed. So I'm just going to pop that to one side. The next part of our box we need to make is the two tabs that come out either side. Now, the size of these tabs, what I've cut in cardstock, is 3.7, because you need this to be narrower than the width of your box, 3.7 by 16 for our right-hand tab, and 3.7 by 14.25 for our left-hand side of our tab. Now, again, if you're doing multiples of this, I've pre-cut this here. But if I put these two side by side, I have got basically 30 centimetres there. So if you take a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock, which is 30.5, I think, centimetres in width, square, then you can cut a 16 centimetre strip and score it at 8 centimetres. Cut a 14, well, you should have left over a 14.25 centimetre strip, and you're going to score that at 7.25. And the reason why we're scoring it is we're going to fold those in half and adhere those together, which is going to give us a much stronger base than just having one layer here, because this chocolate does weigh quite a bit. If you only had one layer of cardstock, it's not going to hold. So I'm going to also fold that one in half. That one there is probably just a little bit short, but that's okay. You're not going to see it. So then I'm going to grab my adhesive, and I'm going to adhere these together to make it one piece. So I'll just pop 2 rows of adhesive there, and I'm just going to close that up like that, and do the same with this one. Just like that. So this one here is going to be my left hand, so it's going to be that side, and this one here is going to be my right hand, and it's going to be on that side. So now what we need to do is we're going to pop some tabs on here. Now I have got the die to cut these out because I bought the die when these came out, and that's no longer available, but you have got the punch which will cut these out. So all I'm going to do here, again, grabbing my seal, I'm going to run that across there and run that on that one. I'm going to grab the tab for my right hand side, which is the largest of the two. I've got my fold here on my left, and I'm going to pop this on here onto my right. Now the tab is actually slightly wider than our white piece here. So what I'm doing here is going to trim that down so it's the same, because we want this to slide nicely inside that box. Fold that over, adhere that down, and then again trim that down. Whoops, I'll just get rid of that little bit there and then trim that off that side. So now here's our box again. So we've got our left-hand side one and our right-hand side one. On our right-hand side one, the top side, we're going to stamp our sentiment and a little heart. So I've got my sentiment here. And we're going to use love this smile, and we're just going to stamp that at a slight angle. And I'm stamping it towards this side here because a portion of this is going to be still inside the box. So let's get rid of that for the moment. And then we're going to grab our heart and some real red dye ink. And we're just going to stamp our heart at an opposite angle just underneath our words there, like so. So let me just clean up these stamps before we go any further. Pop that over there and give this one a bit of a clean as well. Okay. So let's just take that to one side, and we've got those two now ready to adhere into our box. So we're going to take off our backing off our tear and tape. We're going to grab our smile, and I've got my tear and tape over here on my left hand side, and I've got my piece of plastic, my 3 centimetre wide piece of plastic there, as evenly as I possibly can, centered in that 4 centimetre section of this box. And I'm going to pop that on top, just like that, in between those score lines, and give that a good press down. So that's going to look like that. Now that will slide quite easily across there, but we want to keep it in this section here. The next thing that I did for these is I folded that over and folded that again, okay? I'm going to take off the backing off my tear and tape. And I'm going to fold that up, and I want to make sure that this is sitting just below that score line along there. So that's now forming part of our box, or our base of our box. And I've just got a funny feeling. No, that's right. Thought I might have had it upside down. I think I do actually. Hold a tick. Because I have just realised I've put that on upside down. Aren't I clever? Okay, since I have got so many of those, let's do another one. And I have actually got another one of these all ready to go, and we have got some more of this plastic. So let's just go back to this. Sorry about this. So there's let's cut our ends off again just to neaten this up. I could do these in my sleep after making 50 of them the other week, but today it looks like I can't. Okay, so let's just do this part again. So we've got our box. Let's just fold all these score lines very quickly. Hello, Vicky. How are you? Thank you. Okay, so let's try this yet again. So pop that onto there. I've got to make sure I've got my tear and tape to the top. Peel off the backing. Line that up, and let's trim away that excess plastic that we don't need. Grab our tear and tape, put a little bit on. As I said before, you don't want to go past the plastic. This part is quite important. We don't go past the plastic. I'm going to that one there's a bit yucky. Okay, so there's one there. So we're going to take the backing of that off. Make sure that's right at the top. And we're actually going to flip it over. So we're going to pop it on upside down. Okay, that's what I forgot to do before. Very, very important. So let's pop that on there. Upside down. That's going to look better. So that's going to fold over, and it's going to fold over there like that. Then when we open that up, ha-ha, ta-da! Now we have got our words on the right side. That's okay, Perry. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so let's seal this back up again. So let's take off the backing of that, fold that under, and adhere that underneath that score line. So that's going to work much better for us. So that's going to pull that way. Now what we need to do is pop some score tape on this end, on our right side. So before we put our score tape on our left, now we're going to put some on our right because we want these opening in different directions. So again, we're going to go right up to the edge of our box, and we're not going to go past that plastic, okay? We want to keep it inside, so inside those measurements, just that little bit narrower. We'll take off the backing of our tear and tape. And then again, now this time here, I've got my cut edge is going to go on here. I'm going to turn it around so it actually looks neater. And we're going to adhere that down. So now when I pull my tab here at the side, it's going to open like that. And that's your mechanism to create that slide. Okay. So I hope you've got that, and I hope I haven't confused anybody there. But that is their main mechanism for this. Now what we're going to do is close this box up. So we're going to take our backing again off our tape. Now what we have to do is be very, very careful. We want to make sure that this tab is adhered to the cardstock in between the plastic we've got there. We don't want it to adhere it to that plastic. We want it to adhere it to your cardstock, and it's going to be sandwiched in between the cardstock and that plastic. So we're going to very gently slide that down into there, marrying up our edges across there, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I didn't marry that up too well, but that's okay. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that will still slide. If you do get it caught on that plastic, it won't slide, okay? So you need to get that sandwiched in between. So that is our box, and that is our mechanism. Now, if you didn't want to use the camera, what you could do here is now decorate your box. You could put a hole in here, put some twine or some ribbon on the end of it, but you could decorate that with whatever you want to do. But I'm going to show you what I did with my camera. So let me pop that to one side. Actually, I'm just, I'll leave the chocolate to the end. Okay, so we're going to grab another piece of petal pink cardstock, which I've got here. Now, what I did with all mine This one here is in the cardstock is, just reading what cardstock I used. I used Daffodil Delight cardstock, and then I used Crushed Curry for my ink. With the Petal Pink one, I had Petal Pink cardstock, and I used, and I thought I pulled it out. Let me just have a quick little look here. Where have I put it? Calypso Coral ink. There it is. It's just hiding here. So what I'm going to do now is stamp up that. Let's have a road. Let's stamp up our camera. And then we have our second portion of our camera, which is our front. And the other one that I stamped up was the ring to go around. So all of that is stamped up on your Petal Pink. We then need a piece of basic white, and we're going to take our lens piece or shutter stamp, and we're going to stamp this up. Now I'm going to grab my foam mat and pop that underneath, because I will get a much better finish with this. Ink that up well, and we're going to stamp that as well. I'm going to do another one because I managed to get ink in the center and I don't want that. I'm just not going to push as hard down. Oh, I'm going to try a third time, see if I can get a third one. Lucky. There we go. That's better. Okay. So that's all our stamping for that. And again, I'm just going to give all of these a quick clean, just so then we keep everything nice and tidy as we work. So we'll move all of those out of the road. Now you also need another piece of basic black cardstock, because now we're going to do our die cutting. Now I'm just going to use my mini cut and emboss. Of course, if you're doing a lot of them, you can place all this onto your, use your big one and cut multiples out. So you would cut like all of these pieces on one plate. But I'm going to do this just with my mini machine, because it's just here and handy. We don't need that one. Let's get rid of that. And I've got my plate there, and let's grab our dies. I keep my dies and my stamp sets all in one packaging. So we need that one. We need our circle to cut that one. We need this one, and we need that. Now, I was going to say you also need this one here. And this is where I was saying before you need another piece of basic black. But I have already pre-cut this because I cut out a whole lot of them I had leftovers. So you need to cut one of those in black. And the other thing you do need to cut is if you've got some real red cardstock. Now, where have I put these? What I did is I got my real red cardstock. I got, it's much easier on the real red to place a bit of the adhesive sheets on the back of it. And I cut out 2 little red hearts, again, using the die that comes with this bundle. So we don't need that. So I've already got those cut out, but it is much easier with putting this all together with adhesive sheets on the back of that. So let me just grab my machine take all that out of the road. Pop that up there. We've got those already cut, ready to go. And let's do some die cutting. So I'm going to pop this on here with a little bit of Post-it note tape. Line all this up. That one on there. Pop this one. On here, and I'll come back at that one in a minute. So let's just all of this on here, making sure that's all stayed. Put our top on top of that. Oops, just let me just move that out of fraction. Sometimes these things don't want to grip, and you have to just move all of this down a little bit just to give it that little bit of a grip. Not enough still. Let me just pull that down. There we go. That's got the grip now. And we're just going to run that through. So there's that camera. Out front of our camera. And all we have left now to die cut is this circle. And I'm just going to remove that excess there because I also want to do this little one here. Let me just move that up so you can see. That one on there. This one there, we want to line that up like that. Pop that one onto there. Put our plate on top. Sandwich all that together and run that through. So that's our die cutting for the moment. Almost need to replace that plate. Okay. So we need that ring and we need that little lens part just there. So now we've got all our little components. The only other thing we need is a little piece of linen thread. And I think I cut around about 10 centimetres. You probably could get away with a bit less than that, but 10 centimetre strip of that. So I'm just going to grab my, hello Leslie, how are you? I think you get to batch make them, Jane. That's why I was sort of saying if you can use your A4 cardstock now. I know in the US yours is smaller than A4, so you probably will only get 3 out of it. But and I would use this the solid cardstock rather than the two-tone cardstock because it's got more strength to it. But if you batch it, and that's what I did, I cut, sort of 50 odd of those. So I cut 50 of them. I cut, like as you can see, I've got lots of left over. I cut 50 of those. So I cut 50 of that, 50 of that. I think I had 54 or something. Managed to come home with 2. I didn't think I'd managed to come home with any, but this morning I was just unpacking some stuff, and I've still got another 2. So I cut 50 of those, 50 of those. I got, I think I must have used 3 or 4 sheets of basic white 12 by 12 cardstock and cut all of these. So I batched all of that by cutting out 4 of these in an A4 sheet of cardstock, and I did 4 of each colour. So I had about 5 or 6 colours. And so I just did each colour at a time. And then what I had, I think the whole thing took 2 sheets of each colour, 1 sheet for the box, and then 1 sheet, and I had some left over of each colour. So I think if you batch it, if you're doing a huge amount and you batch it, the same with these, okay, instead of just doing, 1 camera at a time and doing two of these, I did 50 of these. So, yeah, the time was spent batching it and getting everything there. And then as soon as I had all these all batched, and then I'd cut out enough for 4 cameras in 1 colour and then put those 4 together. So it didn't take as long. But I think at the end of it, I could almost do it in my sleep too. So that's okay, Leslie. I hope you had a nice lunch. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pop some of our multi-purpose glue on the back of this. Woo, I've got a lot on there. Let's just move that about a bit. It's a new bottle, I think. And we're going to pop that on there and not take it right down the bottom like I did. Beauty of this here is you line up that hole there. Don't take it right down to the bottom. I've got so much glue on here, it's not funny. Let me just grab a scrap here and get rid of, this is rubbish. We'll just get rid of some of this glue on here. Don't need all of that there. Get rid of a bit of that there. So we're going to pop that on top there without making a big mess like I have done, and just let that sit for a little bit. It will dry reasonably quick. So we don't need that, but we do need this piece here. So that's my right side there. So what I'm going to do with this piece is I'm going to pop a little bit of glue. Just dot it all the way around on that one. Pop that down on top. And then the easiest way to glue this is to put the glue onto the back of this, and close to that edge. Again, you don't need too much, just put some dots around. I think because this bottle's been lying down on its side, it's all the glue's at the top, and it's sort of probably got a bit of air in there and probably pushing itself forward. And then we're just going to glue that on top like so. Okay, once you've got that, I'm just going to use up a bit of that excess glue there. Spread that around a bit. And then that goes onto the front there, just like that. That's the simple part. Now I'm just going to pop the lid on that for the moment. Now, what we need to do is let's put our hearts on. Now, this is a little bit fiddly, but the reason why I put the heart on there like a charm on it, there's a little hole on the end here. And I thought, well, what's the point of having a hole unless you use it? So let's put a little bit of linen twine in through there. Now I have cut myself plenty. And we're going to bring that together, and I'm just going to run my fingers down it, just so then I'm sort of taking out any kinks in that, but I'm also just prepping those so they're going to be together there. And take the backing off one of these hearts, because as I said, I'd used adhesive sheets. Now this was where you might find it easier with a pair of tweezers. So I've just got that underneath my tweezers. I'm slipping that underneath my linen thread, and my linen thread's decided it doesn't want to play. Okay, let's lay one down. Now you can make it as close or as long as you want, and lay the two like that. So we're just going to layer two of them down the center of that heart. Take the backing off the other heart, and then just sandwich that linen thread in between and just trim off the bottom. So now you've got like a little charm at the side of your camera. Okay, so now we're going to come back to our box, and we're just going to pop some glue all over that. Take our camera, place it on top. Now what I've just done is I've just made sure the bottom of my camera is flush with the bottom of my box, and just hold it there for a couple of minutes or seconds, just so then that all adheres. Make sure that's all nice. Could, if you wanted to grab your bone folder and just run it on the inside there to make sure all that glue is spread out. And from the other side, you just want to make sure with the other side when you put your bone folder in, because that piece there, see how it's falling down? Because it's only attached up the top there. Just put your bone folder underneath that. You don't want to mess up your slide piece in your box. So there we are. There's our box. I always just hold it on this corner here till I start sliding. Slide that out. Grab my little piece of chocolate and my tear and tape, and I'm just going to cut myself just a little piece. It's only probably about 1.5 centimeters in length, and I'm going to pop it round about in the center. Don't have it going too close to your end, because then your box, this is going to get too heavy at the end there. You want to have it fairly close into your center. Take off that, make sure that's all rubbed down, and then take the backing off that. And pop your chocolate there. I pop it at a little bit of an angle just so it looks pretty. Give it a really good firm press, because your chocolates could be slightly concaved in at the back, and we want to make sure that that's adhered. The first batch I did, I picked them all up and all the chocolates fell out, so I had to go back and reattach the chocolates, which it wasn't a big deal. But there we go. So now slide that back in, and that's now ready to give as a gift to someone. So as I said, if you don't want to decorate this as a camera, you can very easily put a piece of designer series paper, wrap some designer series paper around the whole box, put a tag on the front of the box with whatever sentiment you want to put there. You could even put a heart, if you're using the camera, you can even put a heart in the middle of the camera. There's all sorts of things that you can decorate that box. But it's just a really quick, well, I won't say real quick, but it's a simple but very effective gift or treat to make for any event that you might be going to. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. I did say I would share with everybody. This will be up on my YouTube, so it will be there to go back and have a look at. I will be writing up a tutorial on this and putting that up on my blog. That will be happening over the weekend. I don't know whether it'll be happening tomorrow or on Sunday. But it will be up there before Monday, put it that way. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make some, share with me the images that or tag me in what you've made if you're sharing it on Facebook or on Instagram, because I would love to see what you do with this idea. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who has liked my Facebook page. We have hit and gone over 1,000 followers, so that has been fantastic, has made my day. And I'll catch you all next Friday when we might start looking at some of the new products that we've got coming up in our catalogue. So take care. Have a lovely weekend. It looks like, looking out my window here, we may still have some rain coming. But I'm going to go and grab myself some lunch now, and I'll catch you all later. So have a lovely day, and I will see you later on. Bye for now.